Welcome to BL Stories, where romance, drama, and unforgettable boys' love come to life. Love knows no limits, and the best stories aren't always straight. Subscribe now and join our growing BL-loving family. Chapter 13. The day had finally arrived. Their honeymoon. Just hearing the word made Forth's heart flutter like a burst of confetti. He was excited, nervous, and slightly overwhelmed, checking his luggage over and over again, especially the small silk box Gemini had secretly packed. And yes, he might have peeked at it. More than once. And Gemini? Gemini was glowing. Not just because the morning sunlight made him look like he had stepped straight out of a magazine, but because he had that confident, newlywed energy that made Forth's stomach twist with affection and mild panic all at once. From the moment they woke up, Gemini was all charm and teasing smiles. "You packed the silk one, right?" he whispered while Forth brushed his teeth. Forth almost spat out the toothpaste. "What?" Gemini only grinned. At the airport, Gemini looked effortlessly handsome in black trousers and a white sweatshirt, sleeves rolled up just enough to show his watch. His mask and cap didn't do much to hide his confident walk, or the fact that his hand never left Forth's. "You're staring," Forth muttered while sipping an iced coffee in the private lounge. "I'm thinking," Gemini said smoothly. "Thinking what?" "All the ways I want to make you smile in Bali." Forth's ears turned red instantly. He almost dropped his cup. When it was time to board, Gemini's travel arrangements showed their usual extravagance. Business class seats, mood lighting, and far too much legroom for two people who were more interested in each other than the view. Forth had barely settled in when a flight attendant approached with a friendly smile. "Welcome aboard. Champagne for the couple?" she asked brightly. Forth smiled politely, cheeks warm. But then she looked at Gemini, her voice softening just a little. "And if you need anything at all, Mr. Norowit, please don't hesitate to call." Gemini returned her smile politely, but Forth's eyes narrowed slightly. "She was flirting," Forth whispered once the attendant left. Gemini tilted his head, pretending not to understand. That's me." I saw her flutter her eyelashes. Gemini chuckled, leaning closer. "Are you jealous, Mr. Husband?" Forth's face burned. "No." Before he could say more, Gemini leaned in and kissed him, softly, tenderly, right there at 35,000 feet. Forth froze for half a second before gently pushing at his shoulder. "Gemini, people might see." "Then we'll be quiet," Gemini teased with a grin. Forth glared, flustered beyond reason. "You're impossible." "I know," Gemini replied proudly. As the plane took off, the lights dimmed slightly, and the hum of the engines filled the cabin. Gemini stretched out comfortably and intertwined their fingers under the shared blanket. Forth tried to distract himself by scrolling through the movie selection, but he couldn't ignore the warmth of Gemini's hand resting gently over his. "You okay?" Gemini asked softly. Forth nodded, still blushing. "Just trying not to overthink everything." Gemini smiled, his thumb brushing against Forth's hand. "You don't have to. We're married now. Just relax and enjoy this moment with me." Forth exhaled slowly, his heart swelling. "You make it sound easy." "It is," Gemini whispered, looking at him with quiet affection. "Because it's you." Forth turned toward the window, smiling shyly. "You're too much sometimes." Gemini chuckled. "And you love it." An hour later, they were served lunch. Gemini, ever the gentleman, buttered bread and cut steak with care, even offering Forth a grape with a playful smile. Forth accepted it reluctantly, trying not to grin too much as Gemini looked far too pleased with himself. When the cabin lights dimmed further and the stars outside seemed close enough to touch, Forth tucked himself under the blanket. His eyelids felt heavy, but his mind was still spinning from every look and word Gemini had given him that day. "Sleep," Gemini murmured, brushing a stray hair from his forehead. "You're not going to tease me again, right?" Forth mumbled sleepily. Gemini smiled and kissed his forehead. "Not until we land." Forth smiled, half asleep. "Good. Unless," Gemini added softly, "you ask me to." "Good night, Gemini," Fourth said quickly, hiding his smile under the blanket. Gemini chuckled quietly and reached under the blanket, not to tease, but to hold his hand again. They fell asleep like that, married, blushing, fingers intertwined, somewhere above the clouds, beginning their forever. Chapter 14. The first step off the plane felt like stepping into a dream. The warm Bali breeze greeted them, brushing through Fourth's soft brown hair as he blinked up at the wide, cloudless sky. Gemini's hand found the small of his back, a gentle but protective touch, guiding him forward as if shielding him from even the sunlight. Their private car waited just beyond the terminal, sleek, black, and impossibly elegant. Fourth slid into the back seat first, Gemini following right after and instantly pulling him close. "You're glowing," Gemini whispered. Fourth laughed softly. "I just got sun on my face for 3 minutes." Gemini leaned a little closer, his voice low and teasing. "And yet, I still can't stop looking at you." Fourth's heart raced. "Gem." He gave Gemini's chest a light tap, cheeks warming despite his playful protest. The drive carried them through lush coastal roads lined with palm trees, glimpses of turquoise waves flickering between resorts and cliffs. And then, they arrived. A villa by the sea. Built with glass and warm wood, it perched gracefully on a quiet cliffside. Frangipani flowers framed the stone path, their scent mixing with the ocean breeze. A private pool shimmered under the afternoon sun, and beyond it, the endless stretch of blue sea seemed to blend with the horizon. As they stepped into the open-air living space, the scent of lemongrass and sea salt wrapped around them. The staff greeted them warmly before leaving them alone, save for a small note waiting on the bed. "Happy honeymoon, Mr. and Mr. Norwit. Wishing you a lifetime of love." Fourth froze at the bedroom door. The bed was scattered with rose petals shaped into a heart. A chilled bottle of sparkling juice rested beside a tray of strawberries. 2 robes hung by the door, embroidered with gold thread, his and also his. "This is way too much," Fourth mumbled, blushing furiously. "This looks like a movie set." Gemini appeared behind him, resting his chin on Fourth's shoulder. "You mean it looks perfect? You booked this without telling me." Gemini grinned. "If I told you, you'd have picked a small hut near the forest." "I would've." "Exactly," Gemini said with a laugh. "That's why you're lucky I planned it." That afternoon, they dined on the villa's sunlit deck overlooking the sea. The chef prepared grilled prawns, lobster in butter sauce, and coconut rice wrapped in banana leaves. Fourth tried to focus on the food, but it was hard with Gemini watching him like that, eyes soft, smile lingering, fingers occasionally brushing against his hand. "Try this," Gemini said, offering a bite of grilled fish. "I can feed myself," Fourth muttered, shy but smiling. "I know," Gemini replied, "but I like taking care of you." Fourth sighed but leaned forward anyway, taking the bite. Just as he did, Gemini leaned closer and kissed his cheek, swift and unexpected. "Gemini!" Fourth gasped, flustered and laughing at once. "Sorry," Gemini said with a grin, "I couldn't resist. You kissed me while I was eating. And it was still worth it." Fourth shook his head, trying, and failing, to hide his smile. They finished lunch between laughter and soft teasing, and when the plates were cleared, they walked hand in hand down to the beach. The sky was painted gold and rose as the sun began its descent. The sand felt warm beneath their bare feet, and the waves rolled in gentle rhythms against the shore. Fourth slipped off his sandals and ran toward the water, splashing through the shallows, laughter spilling into the wind. "Catch me if you can," he called, glancing back at Gemini. Gemini didn't run. He walked, slow, calm, eyes locked on Fourth, the faintest smile tugging at his lips. Fourth turned around just in time to collide into his chest. Gemini caught him easily, arms wrapping around his waist from behind. Their clothes were damp, the sea cool against their skin. Gemini rested his chin on Fourth's shoulder, his voice a quiet murmur. "You're unbelievable." Fourth laughed breathlessly. "You mean fast." "I mean beautiful," Gemini corrected softly. The world seemed to still around them. The wind softened, and the waves became a distant hum. Gemini turned him gently, their eyes meeting under the glow of the setting sun. And before Fourth could speak, Gemini leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't fiery. It was slow, filled with warmth, like a promise carried by the sea breeze. When they finally pulled apart, Fourth's cheeks were flushed, his heart thundering in his chest. Gemini brushed a thumb across his cheek. "You look like a painting," he whispered. "I could look at you forever." Fourth blinked, too stunned to speak. "I'm falling in love with you," Gemini said quietly, voice steady, eyes sincere. "So much more than I expected." The words hung in the air like sunlight caught on the waves. Fourth's lips parted. "I." Gemini leaned his forehead against his. "You don't have to say it back. Not yet. I just needed you to know." Fourth swallowed, emotions catching in his throat. "I do feel it though." Gemini's eyes softened. "Yeah." Fourth nodded, smiling shyly. "I don't know when it started, but it's there. I like you. A lot. I think I'm falling too." Gemini smiled, a quiet, genuine smile that seemed to hold the entire sunset in it. He pressed a soft kiss to Fourth's forehead. And there, beneath the golden sky, the two of them stood together, hands intertwined, hearts steady, waves rolling gently at their feet. It wasn't just the start of their honeymoon. It was the start of forever. Chapter 15. The night sky over Bali shimmered with 1,000 stars. Soft golden lamplight filled their villa, blending with the gentle flicker of candles. The scent of jasmine and rose lingered in the air, carried by the ocean breeze through the open balcony doors. The sea whispered below, calm and endless. Fourth stepped out of the bathroom slowly, his heart racing. He wore the simple white robe Gemini had laid out for him, the fabric brushing softly against his skin. Gemini turned from the balcony, eyes immediately finding him. For a moment he forgot how to breathe. "You look," Gemini's voice trailed off as a smile tugged at his lips. "Beautiful." Fourth's cheeks warmed. "You always say that." "Because it's always true." Gemini crossed the room and stopped in front of him. The quiet between them felt alive, filled with meaning, unspoken words, and the deep familiarity of two hearts learning each other all over again. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair away from Fourth's face. "I still can't believe you're really mine." Fourth laughed softly, his nerves fading. "I could say the same thing." Gemini's thumb traced along his jawline before resting on his cheek. The world outside disappeared, the sea, the stars, the hum of the night, all gone, leaving only the two of them. "Come here," Gemini whispered. Fourth hesitated for a heartbeat, then stepped closer. Gemini wrapped his arms around him, holding him close. The warmth of his body, the sound of his heartbeat, the steady rhythm of his breathing, it was all Fourth needed to feel safe. They swayed gently, almost as if slow dancing without music. "Gem," Fourth murmured against his chest. "You always know how to make me calm." Gemini smiled into his hair. "That's because I know how to listen to you, even when you don't speak." Fourth looked up at him, eyes soft under the candlelight. Their gazes locked, and the air between them shifted. Gemini cupped his face tenderly and kissed him. It wasn't hurried. It wasn't wild. It was slow, honest, filled with every emotion they'd kept inside. Fourth's hands clutched at Gemini's shirt as he deepened the kiss slightly, breathing in his scent, the faint trace of salt and cologne. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were smiling. "I've wanted this moment for so long," Gemini whispered. "Not just the place, but the peace. With you." Fourth rested his head against Gemini's shoulder, feeling the warmth of his embrace. "I'm happy we're here," he said quietly. "With you, it feels like everything's finally right." Gemini led him toward the bed covered with rose petals. They didn't rush. They sat side by side, hands intertwined, watching the candles flicker. He lifted Fourth's hand to his lips and kissed the back of it. "You have no idea how much I love you." Fourth's eyes shimmered in the soft light. "I think I do," he said, "because I feel it. Every time you look at me." Gemini smiled gently. "Then I'll keep showing you, every day." He pulled Fourth into his arms again, holding him close under the dim glow of the lamps. Their foreheads rested together, breaths mingling, hearts steady. The night passed quietly, filled with soft laughter, whispered promises, and the sound of the sea below. Outside, the stars burned brighter than ever, but inside that villa, love glowed even warmer. Chapter 16. The morning light in Bali was relentless, soft yet dazzling as it streamed through the white curtains of their honeymoon villa. The golden rays painted everything in a gentle glow, making the place look like a dream. Unfortunately for Forth, it was also far too bright for someone who barely got any sleep the night before. He groaned and pulled the silky blanket over his head, his cheeks heating up as memories of last night replayed in his mind. His body felt like jelly, and moving was absolutely not on his to-do list. "I'm never moving again," he mumbled into the pillow. "Good morning, sunshine," came Gemini's far too cheerful voice. Forth peeked out just in time to see Gemini walking toward the bed, his hair adorably messy, glasses slightly crooked, and a breakfast tray in hand. Pancakes, fresh fruit, and 2 steaming cups of coffee filled the air with sweetness. Forth let out a quiet sigh. "You're evil." Gemini chuckled as he set the tray down. "I bring you breakfast in bed and that's what I get? I should be getting a medal for being the world's best husband." "You wore me out," Forth said weakly, hiding under the blanket again. "You didn't seem to mind last night," Gemini teased with a wink. "Gemini!" Forth's voice came out half embarrassed, half scandalized. Gemini just laughed, gently tugging the blanket away until Forth's face peeked out. Forth was wrapped in Gemini's oversized white shirt. It hung loosely on him, the sleeves long enough to cover his hands. His hair was a sleepy mess, his cheeks pink from both warmth and embarrassment. Gemini stared for a moment, then sighed dramatically. "You are the most adorable thing I've ever seen." "Stop looking at me like that," Forth mumbled. "I married you. I get to look at you like this forever," Gemini said softly, kissing his forehead. Forth groaned again but couldn't hide his smile. "Come on, eat something," Gemini coaxed, helping him sit up carefully. Forth winced a little and muttered something under his breath, earning a knowing grin from his husband. "Oh no, don't tell me your loving husband wore you out," Gemini teased. "I officially hate you," Forth muttered. "No, you don't," Gemini said easily, feeding him a bite of pancake. "Fine," Forth said with a sigh, chewing quietly. "But I'm never trusting you with lace again." Gemini chuckled. "I'll take that as a compliment." Before Forth could retort, a knock echoed from the door. "Room service. Honeymoon surprise delivery," came a cheerful voice. Forth froze. "I'm not dressed." "You're fine," Gemini said calmly, standing up. "It's a private villa." "You're shirtless," Forth hissed, hiding under the blanket again as Gemini opened the door with a polite smile. A hotel attendant came in, carrying a tray with a heart-shaped cake, a bottle of champagne, and rose petals. "Congratulations to the lovely couple." "Thank you," Gemini said warmly. "My husband's just a little shy." From under the blanket came a muffled sound that vaguely resembled a groan. When the attendant left, Gemini turned back, grinning. "You can come out now." "I hate you so much," came Forth's voice from beneath the blanket. Gemini leaned down and kissed his covered head. Still married though. They eventually enjoyed breakfast together, mostly Gemini feeding Forth between playful teasing and laughter. Later, when Forth finally got up to shower, Gemini stayed behind, scrolling through his phone with a content smile. When Forth emerged again, towel wrapped around his waist and skin still damp, Gemini's teasing expression softened into concern. "Still sore?" he asked gently. Forth nodded, looking down shyly. "Come here," Gemini said, patting the bed. Forth blinked. "Why?" "I'll put medicine for you. I can do it myself." Gemini raised an eyebrow. "Really? You can reach that spot comfortably right now." Forth hesitated, face turning pink. "Fine." He lay down carefully on his stomach as Gemini applied soothing balm to his lower back and gently massaged the sore spots. His movements were slow and tender, careful not to hurt him. "Better?" Gemini asked softly. Forth nodded. "A lot." Gemini smiled, brushing a hand over his hair. "You're too cute for your own good." Stop teasing me, Fourth mumbled, though a small smile tugged at his lips. I can't help it, Gemini said, chuckling as he leaned down to kiss his temple. You make it too easy. Fourth sighed, burying his face in the pillow again. This honeymoon is going to be the end of me. Gemini laughed quietly, wrapping an arm around him. No, it's just the beginning. Fourth smiled softly at that, his heart swelling with affection. I love you, Gemini whispered. Fourth turned his head to meet his eyes. I love you too. And in that peaceful morning light, wrapped in each other's warmth and laughter, the world outside seemed to fade away, leaving only them, their quiet joy, and the promise of forever. Chapter 17. The villa was quiet after the long, eventful morning. White sheets lay tangled in lazy folds, sunlight streaming through the wide glass windows and dancing gently across the floor. The air smelled faintly of roses and sea salt, carrying the warmth of the tropics. Fourth rested peacefully in Gemini's arms, his cheek pressed against his husband's bare chest. His face was still flushed, his shyness evident in the way he avoided Gemini's gaze for more than a few seconds. Gemini, on the other hand, looked entirely too pleased with himself. You're warm, Fourth mumbled, his voice muffled as he unconsciously snuggled closer. Gemini chuckled, his tone teasing. You weren't saying that earlier when you were telling me to stop. Gemini! Fourth groaned, hiding his face under the blanket. Don't remind me. I'm just saying, Gemini continued with a grin. You're really cute when you pout. Fourth grabbed a pillow and gave him a weak smack, though it only made Gemini laugh harder. They ended up spending the entire day in bed, ordering room service instead of going out. Plates of fresh fruit, glasses of tropical juice, and local desserts filled the small table beside them. I can walk, you know, Fourth said, still pouting. Gemini leaned back against the headboard, smirking. Really? Because you were walking like a penguin a while ago. I hate you, Fourth muttered, crossing his arms. You said that yesterday too, Gemini replied. This time I mean it. Gemini leaned over and kissed the tip of his nose. You're adorable when you lie. Fourth groaned again, pulling the blanket up to hide his red face. Later that afternoon, they decided to take a long, quiet bath together. Warm bubbles filled the tub, candles flickered on the marble counter, and the faint sound of waves echoed from outside. Fourth leaned back against Gemini's chest, eyes half closed, finally relaxed. Gemini wrapped his arms around him, chin resting on Fourth's shoulder. You doing okay? Fourth nodded, smiling softly. I'm happy. Gemini's heart swelled at that simple answer. He kissed the top of Fourth's head, whispering, Me too. The sun began to sink beyond the horizon, painting the sky in orange and lavender hues. The moment was simple, but perfect. By nightfall, the villa's private pool came alive with light. Underwater lamps cast a soft, silver-blue glow that rippled like liquid moonlight. The stars twinkled above them, and a warm tropical breeze drifted through the palm trees. Let's go swimming, Gemini said suddenly, already grabbing a towel. Fourth blinked from where he was lounging on the couch with a dessert plate. Now, Gemini said with a grin. I'm tired, Fourth mumbled half-heartedly. You're always tired, Gemini teased, lifting him up effortlessly. Gemini! Fourth yelped in surprise as he was scooped into his husband's arms. You said, for better or worse, remember? Gemini said playfully. This is both. Fourth couldn't help but laugh, clinging to him as they stepped outside. The pool shimmered invitingly under the moonlight, steam rising gently from its warm surface. Gemini set him down carefully at the edge. Let's just relax, Gemini said softly, his tone now sincere. No teasing. Just us. Fourth smiled shyly and nodded. They slipped into the water together. The warmth wrapped around them instantly, soothing and calm. Gemini floated behind Fourth, his arms loosely circling his waist as they drifted near the center of the pool. Neither spoke for a while. The night was still, save for the gentle sound of rippling water and the distant crash of waves. You know, Gemini murmured after a moment, I still can't believe we're married. Fourth turned slightly in his arms. You sound like you regret it. Gemini smiled, brushing his thumb along Fourth's cheek. I mean it in a good way. Like, it still feels unreal that I get to wake up next to you every day. Fourth's expression softened. He rested his forehead against Gemini's shoulder, heart fluttering. You're such a sweet talker. It's only the truth, Gemini replied, pressing a soft kiss to his temple. The two of them stayed there for a while, floating, talking, laughing quietly under the stars. Everything felt slower, calmer, more precious. When Fourth started to doze off, Gemini carried him out of the water, wrapping him gently in a towel. You're too strong, Fourth murmured sleepily. You're just light, Gemini teased, brushing a few damp strands of hair from his forehead. Fourth smiled faintly, his voice soft. You're impossible. And you're perfect, Gemini whispered. He laid Fourth down on the bed and tucked the covers around him, drawing him close once more. The sound of the ocean filled the room like a lullaby. Gemini whispered into his ear, "Good night, my beautiful husband." Fourth, half asleep but smiling, mumbled back, "Good night, troublemaker." Gemini laughed quietly and held him tighter. Outside, the waves rolled gently against the shore, soft, endless, and steady. Inside, their hearts beat the same way. Chapter 18. Day 3 in Bali. Gemini, wake up. We're going out. Gemini groaned and buried his face deeper into the pillow. No. Yes. Absolutely not. It's day 3. If we stay in this villa any longer, I'll go crazy. You didn't say that last night when you were begging to stay in bed. Gemini. Fourth pounced. They wrestled half-heartedly, tangled in sheets and laughter until Gemini finally surrendered. 20 minutes later, he stood by the gate in a plain black shirt, sunglasses, and cap, looking both unimpressed and reluctantly in love, as Fourth straddled their rented motorbike with childlike excitement. You're not serious, Gemini said flatly. I'm driving, Fourth announced proudly, flashing his international license like a badge. You're smaller than the bike. And yet I ride better than you. That's not true. You hit a pole twice during our wedding week. That was a small pole. It was a parking sign. Gemini sighed dramatically but climbed on behind him anyway, wrapping his arms around Fourth's waist. If we crash, I want this engraved on my gravestone. Fourth laughed. Shut up and hold me tighter. Adventure and chaos. The chaos began the moment they hit the streets of Bali. Fourth drove like he had something to prove, zipping through alleys, giggling every time Gemini clutched him too tightly around the turns. He pointed out every cafe and food stall they passed, insisting they stop at all of them later. They visited temples first, where Fourth dragged Gemini by the hand like a determined tour guide. They wore traditional sashes, tucked flowers behind their ears, and took far too many selfies. Gemini didn't complain once, even when Fourth made them do matching poses like a cheesy honeymoon ad. In truth, Gemini looked at him as if the sun itself rose for him. Because in his world it did. By noon, they were wandering through a colorful market. Fourth was unstoppable, buying handmade bracelets, spices, and scarves for your mother, he said. Gemini just followed, carrying every bag with the patience of a man deeply in love. At one stall, Fourth pointed at a wooden carving of two figures kissing under a palm tree. That's kind of us, right? Gemini looked at it, then at him. I'd kiss you here, but you'd faint. Fourth rolled his eyes, cheeks flushed. I hate you. Gemini grinned, and still managed to steal a quick kiss behind the stall. The vendor clapped and laughed in approval. Lunch was an adventure of its own. They sat by a roadside stall with plates full of grilled skewers, spicy rice, and fresh coconut juice. Fourth eagerly tried everything, while Gemini hesitated but gave in to his husband's infectious grin. Here, Fourth said, holding a piece of chicken near his lips. Say, ah. Gemini arched an eyebrow. Really? Say it. He sighed and opened his mouth. The spice hit him instantly. His eyes went wide. That's really spicy. Fourth burst into laughter and handed him the coconut juice. Gemini shook his head, still coughing. You're trying to kill me. Fourth smiled sweetly. I'm trying to make you braver. At the spa. By afternoon, they booked a couple's massage at a peaceful spa overlooking the rice fields. The room smelled of jasmine, the breeze soft through the open window. They were supposed to relax. They tried. Gemini stole glances every few minutes, watching Forth's peaceful expression, the soft rise and fall of his back as the masseuse worked. He couldn't help but smile. When the staff left, Forth turned to him, eyes still dreamy. "You kept staring." "I couldn't help it," Gemini admitted. "You looked at peace." Forth smiled faintly. "That's because I am." They stayed like that for a while, hands finding each other across the space between their massage beds. Later that day, they joined a sunset beach walk for couples. The scenery was stunning, the waves golden under the fading sun, the air filled with the scent of salt and hibiscus. Their local guide was friendly and charming. Maybe too charming. "Where are you both from?" the guide asked. "Thailand," Forth said with a cheerful grin. "We're on our honeymoon." "Ah, I can tell," the guide said, his smile lingering a little too long. "You're glowing." Forth chuckled. "He's the reason." Gemini's jaw tightened. The guide glanced at him. "You're lucky." Gemini returned a polite smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I know. Very lucky, and very protective." "Well, of course," the guide stammered, stepping back slightly. "Shall we go, darling?" Gemini said sweetly, pulling Forth close by the waist. Forth blinked up at him, recognizing that look. "Oh no," he muttered under his breath. Back at the villa. The door barely closed before Gemini kissed him, deep and unexpected. Forth gasped in surprise, caught between laughter and affection. "You're jealous, aren't you?" Gemini sighed, resting his forehead against his. "Maybe a little. I just don't like sharing your light with anyone else." Forth softened, cupping his face. "You don't have to be jealous. You're the only one I look at like this." Gemini smiled then, brushing a thumb along Forth's cheek. "Good. Because you're my favorite view in the world." They stood there in silence for a moment, just holding each other, the soft ocean breeze flowing through the curtains. It wasn't about passion or jealousy anymore. It was about love. Steady, grounded, and real. That night, they lay under the soft glow of the villa's lamps, hands intertwined. "Still jealous?" Forth whispered, teasing. "Always," Gemini admitted with a small laugh. "But only because I love you more than I can ever say." Outside, the sea murmured and the stars blinked softly overhead. And somewhere between laughter and whispered "I love yous," Bali felt like the most beautiful place on earth, because they were there together. Chapter 19. Forth woke up to the soft chorus of birds and the scent of the ocean breeze drifting through the open villa window. And Gemini? He was already awake, sitting cross-legged beside him, arms resting on a pillow, wearing the goofiest, most love-struck smile imaginable. Forth blinked sleepily. "Why are you staring at me like that?" "Because my husband looks cuter than sunshine when he's sleeping," Gemini said without hesitation. Forth groaned and pulled the blanket over his head. "Stop flirting. It's morning." "I was flirting in my dream too. Want to know how that went?" "No." "Yes." Gemini leaned closer, gently tugging the blanket down just enough to kiss Forth's cheek. "Good morning," he whispered with a grin. Forth turned red instantly. "You're impossible." Gemini just laughed. After a few minutes of playful bickering and a very clingy shower, where Gemini only behaved after getting a warning pinch, they finally got dressed for the day. Forth came out of the wardrobe holding a bright floral shirt and matching blue swim shorts. "Wear this." Gemini blinked. "You want me to look like a walking fruit drink?" "You look great," Forth teased. Gemini sighed, defeated. "Fine." But when he stepped out wearing the outfit, it was Forth's turn to blush harder than the shirt itself. "Thought so," Gemini said with a smug grin. They headed to the beach for surfing lessons. Gemini should have known better. The way Forth ran toward the surfboards with pure excitement should have been a warning sign. And when he tripped just trying to put on the ankle strap, Gemini knew exactly how this was going to go. Forth was graceful when he danced and elegant when he walked. But on a surfboard? A complete disaster. The first time he tried to stand, he wobbled, squealed, and fell straight into the water. Gemini rushed forward, worried, only to find Fourth laughing uncontrollably, drenched but happy. "Again!" he shouted, determination sparkling in his eyes. Gemini smiled, standing on the shore holding both their towels, his heart full. Until the surf instructor got too close. Grinning, guiding Fourth's balance with his hands lightly resting on his waist. Gemini's smile froze. He didn't say a word. But when Fourth looked back, he saw Gemini standing with crossed arms, sunglasses on, expression unreadable. The moment the lesson ended, Fourth jogged toward him, soaked and smiling. "Did you see that?" I stood up for 3 whole seconds. "I counted 4, Gemini said, wrapping a towel around him like a cape. "Good job, sunshine." Fourth eyed him curiously. "You okay?" "Perfectly fine. You look like you want to chase the instructor with a surfboard." Gemini raised an eyebrow. "Maybe. Or maybe I just want to keep you close so no one else tries." Fourth laughed and nudged him lightly. "Jealousy doesn't suit you." "Neither does sharing," Gemini said with a grin. By evening, Fourth was sun-kissed, a little tired, and leaning sleepily on Gemini's shoulder when Gemini whispered, "Wake up. I have a surprise." Fourth blinked, half asleep. "A surprise?" Gemini only smiled. Down at the private dock, a small white boat waited, illuminated by string lights and lanterns, with a table set for 2 at the back deck. The sky glowed pink and violet as the sun dipped below the horizon. Fourth's eyes widened. "You planned this?" Gemini offered his hand. "Your husband's romantic when he wants to be." They stepped aboard as the boat drifted into open water. Dinner was light and warm, with soft music playing and the sea breeze brushing their faces. Gemini couldn't take his eyes off Fourth the entire time. When dessert arrived, a small chocolate cake they barely touched, Gemini gently pulled Fourth closer until he was sitting beside him. "You really love planning surprises," Fourth murmured. "I really love you," Gemini replied easily. Fourth blinked. "You always say that so casually." "Because it's always true," Gemini said softly. He brushed a strand of hair from Fourth's face. "I thought I understood love before. But you showed me what it really means. You make me want to be better. You make every day lighter." Fourth's heart tightened at the sincerity in his voice. "Every time you smile," Gemini continued, "I fall for you all over again. And even if there was nothing else, no fancy dinners, no adventures, I'd still choose you." Fourth's eyes glistened. He swallowed hard, voice barely above a whisper. "I never thought I'd find someone like you. Someone who could love me for everything I am. But now that I don't ever want to lose you." Gemini froze for a moment, then smiled, soft and full of warmth. He leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't rushed or demanding. It was quiet, sincere, and full of unspoken promises. They stayed like that for a while, the world around them fading into starlight. When Gemini finally lifted Fourth in his arms, he carried him into the cabin with gentle care. Fourth laughed softly. "So, no more surprises?" "Just one," Gemini said, tucking him into bed. "I'm going to kiss you to sleep." He pressed soft kisses on Fourth's forehead, his hair, his temple, each one a silent, "I love you." Outside, the sea whispered against the hull of the boat. And in the gentle rhythm of the waves, Fourth fell asleep with the safest, happiest smile on his face. Chapter 20. The morning started with chaos. Not the usual kind where someone burned toast or forgot their keys. This was a fashion war in paradise. "No, you can't wear that pineapple shirt again." Fourth groaned, tugging the hanger from Gemini's hand. "But it makes my arms look good," Gemini protested. "You wore it 2 days ago." Gemini crossed his arms. "Why are you trying to deny the world my muscles?" "I'm trying to save your husband from dying of secondhand embarrassment," Fourth muttered, already pulling a crisp white linen shirt and matching shorts from the closet. "You'll look like a Greek god who actually reads." Gemini grinned. "Hot. You're welcome." Once peace was restored, the couple headed out for a private spa session at a nearby luxury resort. The air smelled of sandalwood and orchids, and the soft instrumental music playing in the background made everything feel like a dream. The staff greeted them warmly, their smiles a little too knowing for Fourth's comfort. It's just a massage," Fourth said, blushing. "Of course," Gemini replied with a playful wink. "Just a massage." Inside, the room was softly lit, with candles flickering and faint scents of jasmine drifting through the air. 2 massage beds stood side by side, draped with white towels. As the therapists worked their magic, the room filled with calm silence and the rhythmic sound of ocean waves in the distance. Yet beneath the relaxation, there was an unspoken warmth between them, a quiet affection that made their hands brush and their glances linger longer than necessary. When the massage ended, Gemini turned his head toward Fourth, smiling. "Feeling better?" he asked. Fourth nodded, eyes half closed. "I hate how good you look even when you're supposed to be resting." Gemini chuckled. "You looked like peace itself back there. I didn't want to blink." Fourth threw a towel at him, but he was laughing too. By evening, the sky had turned gold, and the villa felt like it was wrapped in calm ocean air. Gemini disappeared into the bathroom to freshen up, still humming a tune under his breath. When he came back, he froze. The lights were dim, the curtains drawn. Candles flickered on every surface, and soft romantic music played from a speaker in the corner. Rose petals were scattered across the bed like a memory of their first night together. And there was Fourth, standing in the middle of it all, wearing a deep red silk robe that shimmered in the candlelight. Gemini's breath caught. Fourth smiled shyly, his voice soft but teasing. "You said you liked red on me." For a moment, Gemini could only stare. "You're going to give me a heart attack." He stepped closer, slower this time, like every movement carried meaning. "Is this revenge for the pineapple shirt?" Fourth laughed quietly. "No. This is your surprise." He reached out, brushing a petal from Gemini's hair. The small gesture said everything words couldn't: the comfort, the desire, the love that had grown between them over countless small moments. They stood there for a while, letting the silence speak for them. Then Gemini gently took Fourth's hand and kissed his forehead. "Thank you," he whispered. "For today. For everything." Fourth smiled. "You deserve every bit of it." They spent the evening talking softly under the dim light, sharing memories, laughter, and dreams of the future. When they finally lay in bed, the night wrapped them in quiet warmth. Gemini held him close and whispered, "You're the most beautiful thing that's ever happened to me." Fourth's eyes fluttered shut, a smile curving on his lips as he murmured back, "I know." Outside, the waves whispered against the shore, carrying the sound of their laughter into the night. Chapter 21. "Please." "No." "Please, Gemini?" "No." "But baby." I said, "Wait, did you just call me baby?" Fourth blinked innocently from where he stood, already dressed in his half-wet rash guard and swim shorts, lips forming the most exaggerated pout Gemini had ever seen. Gemini groaned. "You're not playing fair." Fourth leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You love me." Gemini buried his face in his hands. "Unfortunately, yes." And just like that, he gave in. 20 minutes later, Gemini stood by the dock, wearing a bright orange life jacket and glaring at the turquoise sea as if it had personally offended him. Fourth was next to him, practically glowing with excitement. "Okay," Fourth said, reading off their resort itinerary like a kid on Christmas morning. "First we do flyboarding, then snorkeling, and then diving." Gemini sighed. "One of these will definitely end me." "Not before our second anniversary," Fourth replied cheerfully. Flyboarding came first. Gemini learned 2 things right away. Flyboards were terrifying, and Fourth was terrible at them. The moment the instructor helped Fourth balance on the board, he wobbled, yelped, and soared into the air for exactly 3 seconds, before crashing straight back into the water. Gemini panicked. "Fourth." From the waves, a hand shot up. "I'm okay." Gemini nearly collapsed with relief. "I want to try again." Fourth called, already swimming back toward the jet ski. Gemini shook his head, half in disbelief, half in admiration. "Why do I even love you?" The second try went only slightly better. Fourth managed a wobbly 10 seconds in the air before tumbling back down again. Gemini eventually tried too. He lasted 5 seconds. By the time they finished, both were soaked, laughing uncontrollably and clutching their stomachs from how ridiculous it had all been. When they moved on to snorkeling, Gemini finally looked relaxed. The sunlight danced over the water, and Fourth's laughter carried over the gentle waves. "I'm not dying yet," Gemini joked as he helped Fourth adjust his mask. "You'll live a little longer," Fourth teased. "I still need to drag you to that amusement park I saw in the city." Gemini raised an eyebrow. "You're already planning more chaos?" "Obviously," Fourth said before diving underwater. Their fingers brushed beneath the surface, linking together as they swam side by side. Schools of fish shimmered around them, and the sea painted their skin with dappled light. At one point, Fourth surfaced, pushing his wet hair back. "Did you see that coral? It's so pink." Gemini smiled softly. "You're so pink." "Huh. Nothing." Then came diving. "This is the one I really wanted to do," Fourth said excitedly. "They say there are shipwrecks and sea turtles here." Gemini smiled and shook his head. "You're impossible." Underwater, hand in hand, the world looked completely different. The silence, the light, the slow rhythm of bubbles rising, it all felt like another universe. Fourth's eyes widened with wonder as they explored, brushing coral, spotting a shy turtle, and weaving through rocks that glowed faintly in the filtered sunlight. When they surfaced, Fourth laughed, wrapping his arms loosely around Gemini's neck. "I didn't think I'd ever get to do this with you," he said quietly. Gemini's expression softened. "I'd follow you anywhere if you pouted hard enough." Fourth giggled. "You'd hate the heat." Gemini grinned. "You're hotter." Fourth rolled his eyes. "Oh my gosh." Before he could finish, Gemini kissed him. A brief, sunlit touch, full of warmth and affection. By early evening, they returned to their villa, exhausted, sun-drenched, salty, and still laughing like two kids who had just discovered summer for the first time. Gemini dropped onto the bed. "I'm never moving again." Fourth flopped beside him, his damp hair falling over his forehead. "Wasn't it worth it?" Fourth asked, nudging him. Gemini turned, brushing the stray strands from Fourth's face. "Yeah," he said softly. "You smiled all day." "You did too," Fourth whispered. Gemini leaned down, placing a gentle kiss on his temple. "I always do when I'm with you." That night, wrapped in towels and laughter, their skins still warm from the sun and the sea, they didn't need anything fancy. No candles, no silk, no grand gestures. They just needed each other. Two hearts, still racing from the waves. Still falling. A little harder than before. Chapter 22. The last evening in Bali came too fast. It was one of those sunsets that looked too perfect to be real, sky brushed with soft pinks and molten gold, the sea glowing like glass as the waves whispered against the sand. Fourth stepped out of the villa barefoot, the salty breeze brushing his hair. He looked suspicious, mostly because Gemini had been acting strangely all afternoon. "Why are you smiling like you just hit something?" Fourth narrowed his eyes. Gemini, dressed in a cream linen shirt and holding 2 glasses of chilled champagne, only smirked. "You'll see." "Gemini, what did you do?" Instead of answering, Gemini took his hand and led him down a candlelit stone path that wound toward the private beach behind their villa. And then Fourth saw it. A candlelit dinner set up under a white canopy, soft fabric fluttering in the breeze, fairy lights twinkling above like fireflies. A long table sat in the center, decorated with wildflowers, seashells, and a delicate card that read, "Thank you for choosing love." Fourth stopped walking. His chest tightened. "You did this?" Gemini shrugged casually. "You said you wanted to explore. I just wanted to give you something we'd remember. No surfing, no shopping, no being chased by sea turtles, just us." Fourth laughed, eyes misty. "You're such a romantic. It's honestly unfair." Gemini leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You love it." Fourth looked away, smiling shyly. "Maybe." They sat together under the canopy, dining and laughing as the sun slipped into the sea. Gemini fed him grilled prawns with spicy tamarind sauce, wiped a grain of rice from his lips, and kissed his temple when no one was looking. When the stars began to appear, Gemini reached across the table and took Fourth's hand. "I want to say something," he said. Fourth looked up, still chewing a bite of dessert. I'm listening. Gemini laughed quietly. Thank you. For marrying me. For surviving my bad moods, my pride, and even my mother. Fourth snorted into his drink. I was always told I'd end up alone, Gemini continued softly. That no one would stay with someone like me. But you did. Every single day you do. Fourth's eyes welled up. Gem. So, I want to promise you this, Gemini said, squeezing his hand gently. No matter how hard or messy or beautiful life gets, I'll always choose you. Fourth smiled through his tears. Even if I buy 5 suitcases of random things? Especially then. They both laughed, and Gemini stood, walking around the table to pull Fourth into his arms. Barefoot they danced. No music, just the rhythm of the waves, the warm glow of fairy lights, and the sound of their laughter carried by the sea breeze. Gemini whispered against his forehead, I love you more than I can ever explain. Fourth tightened his hold on him and murmured back, then don't explain. Just keep showing me. So he did. With gentle touches. With quiet smiles. With the kind of love that didn't need words to be understood. The next morning, Gemini, it won't close. Because it's your 8th shopping bag, Fourth. It's not my fault you look good in everything I bought. Gemini sighed, watching as Fourth wrestled with their overstuffed suitcase. You bought bath salts, 5 robes, 2 statue heads, 10 fridge magnets, and 6 sarongs. They're for our parents. And the magnets are for our fridge. Gemini gave him a look. We don't have a fridge that magnetic. Fourth ignored him, dramatically throwing himself on top of the suitcase until the zipper finally clicked shut. See? Teamwork, he declared proudly. At this point, I think the suitcase gave up, Gemini muttered. At the airport, they were their usual opposites. Gemini in sleek black joggers and a mask, calm and composed, while Fourth looked like a sleepy bunny in an oversized hoodie, hair a charming mess. I'm never walking again, Fourth groaned, flopping into his business class seat. Gemini adjusted his pillow. That's fine. I'll carry you for the rest of our lives. Fourth narrowed his eyes. You're getting too good at flirting. You love it. Maybe. He was asleep within minutes, curled up beside Gemini, hand tucked against his chest, breathing slow and even. Gemini looked at him quietly for a long moment. This whirlwind of chaos. This stubborn, bright, messy, wonderful soul. His hurricane of a husband. And somehow, the calm that came after every storm. Gemini smiled faintly, brushing a hand over Fourth's hair. He loved him. Completely. Endlessly. Like a lunatic. Chapter 23. They had barely landed in Thailand when Gemini's phone buzzed with a message. Mom, you both must be too tired to cook. Come to our house for dinner. 7 p.m. Wear something decent, Gemini. And don't be late. Fourth peeked at the screen and groaned, exhaustion still clinging to him. Didn't we just survive 10 days of underwater adventures and non-stop travel? Gemini sighed, leaning his head back against the seat. And now we get to survive my mother. That evening, at Gemini's family home, Gemini's mother welcomed them with open arms, full of energy and dramatic flair. Whoa. Look at my newlyweds. One glowing, and the other pretending he doesn't melt every time his husband speaks. Fourth greeted shyly, bowing politely as his cheeks flushed pink. My son's charming and adorable husband, she corrected, pulling him into a tight hug before handing him a plate piled with food. Come to sit. Tell me everything. How was the trip? Did Gemini embarrass you in public again? Did he overplan like usual? Did you eat properly? Gemini groaned. Mom, I'm talking to the prettier one. Hush, she said without missing a beat. Fourth chuckled nervously, answering her questions between bites, though she kept adding more food to his plate faster than he could finish. Leaning close, she whispered, he loves you more than anyone ever will. But don't spoil him too much, all right? Gemini rolled his eyes. He already does. Exactly, his mother replied with a teasing smirk. Dinner was as warm as it was chaotic. Gemini's mother teased them endlessly, nagging about Gemini's work habits, complimenting Fourth's polite manners, and insisting they couldn't leave without taking home enough food for a week. When it was finally time to go, she hugged Fourth once more and said, "Don't let him work too hard. And if he ever annoys you, just flirt with someone else to keep him in line." "Mom!" Gemini exclaimed, mortified, while Fourth laughed softly. Back at the university, reality came rushing back. They slipped easily into their old roles, professor and student. It was almost strange how natural it felt to return to that rhythm. The villa, the sea, the laughter, and their quiet moments together all became a beautiful secret tucked away behind the walls of routine. In public, Gemini was once again the calm, composed professor, stern, unreadable, untouchable. And Fourth, the diligent student, bright, respectful, and careful to hide the warmth in his eyes when their gazes met. Yet, in between the lines of their daily lives, love still found its way. Through stolen glances across lecture halls. Through late-night texts that said, "I miss you." Through elevator rides when they were alone, and Gemini would whisper, "I married the most beautiful troublemaker alive." Their love existed quietly, unspoken, yet undeniable. At night, their apartment was a different world. A space filled with laughter, quiet dinners, and the simple joy of being together. Gemini would sneak behind Fourth while he cooked, stealing quick kisses. Fourth would wear oversized shirts that clearly weren't his, lounging on the couch while Gemini graded papers beside him. Every night ended with soft laughter and gentle goodnights, wrapped in warmth and peace. Days passed like that, quiet, content, and almost too perfect. Love had never felt this calm before. But sometimes, calm is only the space between waves. And soon, the tide would rise again. Chapter 24. For days, everything felt like a dream. Their honeymoon, their return, the playful, stolen kisses in their shared apartment, the quiet thrill of loving someone in secret. But life never lets dreams last forever. The calm ended on a Thursday afternoon. That was the day a new face walked into the university's business department. Professor Elisa Thavern, age 29. Tall, elegant, polished. Her calm grace and low, confident voice caught everyone's attention the moment she arrived. At first, it was the staff whispering, "She's brilliant. Did her research in London. I heard she used to teach here 5 years ago. Didn't she and Professor Gemini have a thing?" The word X traveled down the hallways faster than the morning announcements. By the next day, the students had picked it up too. "Did you see how Professor Gemini looked at her in the corridor? They used to date, right? She's his type, mature, confident, the classy kind." Fourth heard every word while pretending to study in the common room. Headphones on, textbook open, but nothing on the page made sense. At first, he brushed it off. Just rumors. Gossip. People always had something to say when someone new and beautiful showed up. But then he saw it. Gemini, standing by the corridor window in his usual black shirt and silver watch, every bit the calm, composed professor. And across from him, Professor Elisa, smiling politely, head tilted just slightly as she greeted him. And Gemini smiled back. It wasn't a big smile. Just a small curve of his lips, gentle, easy. But for Fourth, it was enough to make something inside him tighten. Because Gemini never smiled at anyone like that. He only smiled like that at him. That evening, Fourth didn't say a word about it. He sat quietly on the sofa in their apartment, legs tucked under him, scrolling through his phone with a blank expression. Gemini walked in after finishing a call, placed his bag down, and ruffled Fourth's hair. "You ordered food yet?" Fourth shook his head. "Not hungry." Gemini frowned slightly. "Everything okay, love?" "Yeah," Fourth said quickly, still staring at his phone. Gemini didn't press. Maybe he thought it was just a long day. He was distracted too, checking messages, replying to a long thread, typing quickly with focused eyes. Fourth noticed. He didn't ask, didn't look, didn't want to know. But the ache in his chest deepened anyway. After a few moments, he stood up and muttered, "I'm taking a shower." That night, they lay side by side in bed. Gemini's arm was loosely draped around Fourth, But the younger man's mind was far away. He stared at the ceiling, his thoughts spinning in quiet circles. She was mature, beautiful, intelligent, and they had history. While he was just a 21-year-old student still trying to find his footing, their relationship was still a secret. He couldn't even hold Gemini's hand in public. And now, someone who once stood beside Gemini openly, someone who belonged to his past, was suddenly back in his world. Fourth's chest ached with thoughts he couldn't say out loud. It wasn't just jealousy. It was the quiet, painful fear of being replaceable. Thanks for listening to today's BL story. If it made your heart skip a beat, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Only here on BL Stories, where love knows no limits.